Sorry,
all of that's getting in there.
My foot got caught on the on my pants and like popped.
Ow, you're sitting down.
I relocated so that I'm like sitting on one of my legs. And
okay.
I never seated appropriately, like with my feet flat on the ground. I never do that.
I have a grounding mat, so I try to do that, but
we should talk about that.
What is a grounding mat?
My brother's like into grounding now, and like I bought him one of the grounding things for the bed.
Yeah, those are good, but I don't have those.
I don't know what you all are talking about.
So grounding mat is kind of, on the electrical circuit, there's this ground, and they have like a connection that you can connect it to a mat. Then it allows you to pull some of the impurities from the top of your body down to the ground. So think about when you go outside and walk on the floor and you're walking on your bed fit. It's pretty much creating the same experience, but you're sitting inside of a house. So there is a lot of topics about some health benefits and grounding. I don't know too much research around that, but I grew up in Nigeria, so I'm always walking around barefoot. So I'm already used to grounding. So when I can go outside to ground, it does help me, and it also feels less stressful for me post the end of the day. So it's
like your body's connected to the earth. And we're like so used to having like this disconnect from the physical ground, right? And we have like this force in the earth that's beneficial. It's very like naturopathic.
Yeah.
Okay, so what size tinfoil hat do both of y'all need?
It's that level.
You better wear your tinfoil hat because I have some strange theories, right?
I mean, people are very serious about it.
No, it's legitimate. It is. So the grounding we use is actually
I definitely do feel different when I do
touch
when
grass.
You walk in the grass.
Yeah,
there's something I don't know how to describe it, but there is a different.
That's what the people say.
I walked all the time when I was a kid, right? Barefoot outside. I played all the time barefoot. So I know the difference when I stopped doing that and now. So it's quite interesting.
My brother is very serious about it. Like he will go and like sit and put his feet outside in the grass just to be one with the earth.
Well, let's not make it woo-woo-ish. It's not like wrong with the air kind of thing. It's just like
is.
He wants to be a tree. I am a tree.
We're a mixture of a lot of things, right? So you got to think about like things that like I just think about it more like a circuit. I ground all my circuits, right? So basically it makes sense.
You're grounding your body, and we're a bunch of electrical connections, right? Like that's how we fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, the brain is a bunch of electrical impulses and connections.
And how do you ground it?
So when you build a system electrically, the system is nice and fine, it can work, but the egg grounding does help whenever you have too much energy somewhere, can allow you to pass some of the electrons to the ground. Now, we're the same way. Like, think about when you have a lot of anxieties and all your electrons is just overdoing it. Now you have this path where nothing's going through, and so you just ground yourself on the earth. That's why the grass works and all that.
There you go.
That's the technical side of it.
I've heard people tell other people on the internet when they're like getting all riled up, go touch some grass.
I know.
I feel like that's what that's getting to. Like, go get grounded, go get all your electrical impulses ground so you can
connect to nature.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Okay, well, maybe I should introduce you.
Yeah.
All right. So today we have an amazing guest, Chioma Aso, and she is all the way from Port Harcourt, Nigeria, although she's currently in Florida with us, kind of far away, but still in Florida. Right now, she serves as the founder and president of STEAMDivas Incorporated, and she's also a senior engineering manager at Cliffhanger Games. Her background is that she did a bachelor's of science in electrical engineering at the University of Texas at Dallas. And then she moved to Florida to do a master's degree in engineering management in electrical engineering at the University of South Florida. Her focus has been in manufacturing and then moving into electronics and electronics testing and design and then ultimately into management. As the founder and president of STEAMDivas, she helped establish a mission to support women in pursuing careers in STEM. And so she works with girls and she helps train them through hands-on experiences and mentorship in STEM, which is really exciting. Some other claims to fame. She's a published author and her really focused on insights into productivity of teams and individuals, and focusing on team dynamics. Her book, Unlocking the Team Puzzle, is available if you want to look up that book. She's volunteered with Black Girls Code, and she also has a top secret level clearance. So don't mess with her because she knows some people.
She make it disappear.
That's right. Other notable things. So she's worked for EA Sports as a senior software engineering manager. I mentioned she worked for Lockheed Martin, but Lockheed Martin Space as a senior electronics engineer. And she is all around an amazing woman who's balancing work and more work in life. And so we're really excited to learn more about her and talk about her life today. So thank you so much, Chioma, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. That was such a great introduction. I'm like, who is she?
It's you. I think it's really cool. So I know that we got like a message from you on LinkedIn. Like, hey, I'm really amazing. You should look at my profile. And we
Come
looked.
see me.
We looked and we were like, yes, you are. You should be on our show. And so this is an example of like, well, you a boss, let somebody know about it. Don't hide it.
Awesome.
Let it be.
Yes.
Okay. So Chioma, we always start with people's early experiences. Like, what was life like for you in Nigeria growing up? And what brought you here?
Oh, well, we're going all the way back. So
all the way back.
I was born in Nigeria in Port Harcourt, which is in River State, down south, where all the oil reside. And growing up there, I grew up with my mom. I grew up with a single mom, and my dad, who, I do both sides of places. So I grew up in, my mom is a very liberal, forward thinking kind of woman. So all my life I've been surrounded with powerful women. So I didn't realize that it was different because that was what I knew. And then my father was on the wealthy side. So it was kind of interesting to live with my mom, who's like middle class, and my dad, who's also wealthy. So I've had experiences across both sides. I've always been intelligent. So that's funny enough. It's like, but in Nigeria, we knew the different kind of being smart. There's book smart, there's EG smart, and all that. So it was kind of acceptable. Like everybody had their skills, and mine was just being intelligent. And so everybody just kind of knew I was intelligent, but it was never priced above different forms of intelligence where people were street smart or emotionally intelligent and things of that nature. So it never felt odd like people do it now. It was just kind of like, oh, that's your thing. She reads a lot. That one's the book one. I had a nickname that they called me Booker T. Booker T. Washington, yes, because I always had a book with me, growing up, and so I started reading really early with no one really teaching me. I just kind of watched Sesame Street.
Oh wow!
I started reading.
Sesame Street, the goat of educational TV.
Exactly. And so it wasn't like they were teaching me, but you were hearing the sound and you were like, I think I can figure this out. And since no one was really teaching me, it was kind of surprising how I was reading to my parents because no one was, no one really forces you to learn until you get into preschool, right? So it's kind of like, so I didn't really know I was reading per se. Yeah. I just started, picking up the love letters that my older cousins would keep around and start reading it.
So you was reading the tea. Right. I thought you were putting up like the Cat in the Hat or something like that. You were like,
wow. They're like, he's a kid. And so all the younger cousins about my age would bring the letter to me, or they tore it up or something, and would pick it up and put the puzzles together. That's how mischievous we were. But my grandmother heard me reading one day, and she was like, "You can read?" And I thought I was in trouble, right? Because, that's what I've been doing with the reading. And that's when I was like, "Oh yeah, this is pretty cool."
She was learning the letters on Sesame Street.
Yes.
And putting it together.
Exactly.
Yeah. She was unlocking the puzzle.
I was unlocking the puzzle there. I like that. And so it was quite interesting that I had this affinity for engineering stuff. So my mother, being this very advanced person, she just pretty much said, "Oh, do whatever you like." She never really held us back. And so she always said, "Oh, this one will be an engineer." In African press, just give you one title of what career.
Yep.
Like, the 4 careers.
Doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Grace to the family.
Yep.
So he was like, "Oh, this one's the engineer." And I'm a girl. Typically, engineering is not usually what they, push girls into. So I just kind of like, "Oh, I want to be an engineer." I just knew, but I didn't know what engineering I wanted to be a part of. But my mom had this TV and this radio that I like to mess with, and I like to take things apart and put them back together. And sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't work. And so we had people come over to the house, because then we don't throw things away; we repair things. People come over to the house to fix things, and I'll be watching what they're doing. And after they go, I'll start fixing the things myself, and so I'll end up becoming the fixer of the situation. And even though I broke it. And my mom would be like, "Okay, go get her to go fix it," because, she didn't need to pay somebody. So I'll fix it. So I started becoming a fixer. But I thought my dad was an engineer. And I think that's kind of like why I wanted to be an engineer. But he was a civil engineer. So I thought I would be like a civil engineer, and I would be this engineer, and I'll be that engineer. And my mom, she's a caterer. So she's, more.
So she's a food engineer.
She's a food engineer. So there was a time I wanted to be a food engineer too.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's funny. My career has been everywhere in my head. And eventually, when I started going into college, I decided I was going to be an electrical engineer, because I had an affinity for electrical engineering.
For breaking things.
That's another way you can put it. So I've already mastered the act of failing. And as an engineer, you have to know how to fail. So I failed woefully, and I picked up myself again. Eventually, I decided to go to college. I was going to start out in Nigeria, and then I decided I was going to go to the United States and study electrical engineering. So that's how I started and got over here.
So what was that like? Like, you just decided, you know what? I am going to Texas. Like, how did you pick where you wanted to go? Did you know much about the U.S. before you decided to come over?
I had people in my life that were going overseas, mostly to the UK. I had one uncle that was in the US. And, that was a kind of like one of my fun uncles. And I was like, I'll go to the US and study. He came over here to study too. But when it comes to like knowing all the states or all the colleges and things like that, I really wasn't sure. And this is how funny it was. Like, I applied to a few schools. Like, I was like, I want to go to Texas, it's warm. I want to go to California, it's warm. And I applied to Stanford, right? And I applied to University of Texas. But University of Texas offered me a scholarship. And I was like, I'm going to that one.
Yeah.
So it was later when I found out that Stanford was this school, like, was there I got what the hype of going to specific college was about.
Like the Ivies.
I found out when I got here. But the cool thing is, I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't have the bondage. I like to call it a bondage of going to an Ivy League, to say if I had gone to an Ivy League, I would have done this and that. I just knew I could do whatever I wanted to do, regardless of whatever college I go to.
Yeah. I think that's a amazing story. Like, a lot of people choose schools or places to go based on like where their family's been, right? Like,
yeah,
it feels safer, right? Like, because you have like a context or a general understanding. So, like here where we work, we also get like a lot of students who they're like in California or somewhere else, and one relative. One they like came here like forever ago, and that's one of their motivations to come to college, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of thoughts I had. One, like, you were where the money resides in Nigeria, right? Like,
for real.
The oil area, like having a family that are more affluent than most, I would say, like than most of the country, right? Yeah. What did that feel like coming here to a place where like that kind of stuff matters to folks a little too much, in my opinion?
Yeah, it was quite interesting coming here and not having to work to go to college. That's all I could do was just go to college, and understanding that most of the people here have been working before they even got into college. And I don't even have any work experience. It's kind of funny. I mean, I've worked for families and, things like that, but I don't have any, I've applied for a job kind of experience. And coming here also, I like to call the United States, this is something we say amongst us in Nigeria, the leveler. We like to call it leveler. It kind of brings all of us on the same level. And when you get here, it really doesn't matter who your dad is or your family background is. Yeah. We're all here. And there's so few of us here in a sense compared to when you're in Nigeria. So you're all hanging out together. You're not really worried about, is this person on my level or not? You're just happy there's another Nigerian next to you. So it's always that mentality coming here and just leveling up.
That's so cool.
I have a follow-up question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a friend who's from Virgin Islands, and I feel like I have a similar question that she had growing up, where she said, like, she didn't know she was Black until she got to the U.S. because at home, there's Black doctors and Black lawyers. It's nothing to have Black people in high positions, but then she got here, and it's, like, something to talk about. So, like, when you got here, were you like, oh, is this how y'all treat Black people? Like, what was that like? Like, all of a sudden being put into a category based on the way you look versus how you grew up?
It was quite interesting. It was a culture shock for me because I didn't know I was Black either. That's why I always explain to people. I was like, it's kind of funny how I felt it really wanted me to know I was Black. And I think it came down to people wanted me to know my place. And it was quite interesting because I didn't know I was Black. I had this teacher at one point in time. I was writing stories. It was a creative writing class I took. And I wrote a story, and the person the guy's name was Jeremy. The girl's name was Becky. It was just a very non-African story. The story was kind of like, it was about suicide. And you know how Africans are not even into suicide. So I was trying my hand at, some non-African thing. And she was like, why don't you send the story over to like an African publisher? Cause I didn't know. It took me a while to even know when people were being racist to me. Like, seriously, this is how non-Black I didn't realize I was, because I'll be like, they would tell me stuff and I was like, okay. So to be honest, I didn't realize that what she was telling me at that time was was full of racist undertone. But I was really puzzled. I was like, I don't understand. This story it's not an African story. Because we have African publishers that I've read, and I was like, this is not an African story. I think it would fit right in here. So that's always stuck in my mind. I found it quite interesting that for someone like me, that I didn't realize I was Black, I didn't know what racism actually was in the front, if it's not actually in my face. I didn't understand why people wanted me to know what racism was. So it was confusing to me. But over time, I realized that it was important for certain people that I realize I'm Black, so that I can understand where I am, my level in whatever totem pole they created. Unfortunately, I'm already too grown. I've already adopted some behaviors of what I think being Black is. So it was hard to convince me otherwise.
Right. I'm good. Like, y'all can keep your racism over there.
Right.
I'm going to keep being me. Thank you very much.
Like the point you made that they wanted me to know I was Black, because they're the first people to holler, oh, we're colorblind. We treat everybody exactly the same, but you need to know you Black, though. Just even though we're not counting, you need to know this.
There's a mess. A whole mess. Wow. So that was like in college that you had those. That was in college.
That was my first experience in, like if it's the earliest experience I could think about. Like I said, I had no idea when people would be racist to me. There was like plenty of examples, and I would just not understand the way the conversation or why you would say that. So I was more confused, but it was difficult when you're confused. Then when you know that the person is being racist, you'd be like, oh, okay. Because sometimes you're like, I don't know why this person said this to me, or I don't know why this person is this way to me. Did I do something wrong? Is it me? So you're overthinking all kinds of things. But once you understand that there are people who may be racist or just grew up around racism, it's a lot easier to handle because you're like, okay, this is a you problem, not me.
Facts. Yeah. So in like classroom though, like, did you experience that, or was it more like when you were trying to do other things?
I did experience it in the classroom because you
chose electrical engineering, right?
Yes,
like of all the engineering.
Yes.
So we're not represented well in those spaces.
Yeah. So we're two Black girls.
Yep.
And for some teachers, they couldn't differentiate us. So that was.
Did you look anything alike?
No, we didn't look anything alike.
Did you have like similar names?
No,
never, never.
We're
same
just
height.
No, we look nothing alike, to be honest.
Yeah, same vibes over here too. But they're like literally the same exact thing.
Yeah.
So that was funny. I could dodge from class issues there.
But they're like, I know it's supposed to be two of you here, exactly. So wait, I don't know which one's missing, but one of y'all ain't here.
So if they accuse you, be like, no, I was here.
So I wasn't at that level of chaos.
Right.
That was so funny.
That was the positive. But I think that there was also some people with preconceived notion about what you should know and what you shouldn't know. And I mean, I'm Nigerian. We're very boisterous people. We're always saying what has in our mind, saying how we feel and things like that. And I didn't know that was offensive, given the situation. And so I was termed a troublemaker because I always wanted to say, like that's not right, or because growing up we were taught not to bow our heads to anybody, right? Basically you hear your parents say, "Who told you to bow your head for this person? That you're not supposed to bow your head." So you're just basically raised in that kind of environment. So you're constantly standing tall, subconsciously, physically, and both in your mind. Like I said, I grew up around a lot of strong women, and so it was just Saturday. It was never really any big celebration to do things. So it was quite an eye-opening. It was a journey, recognizing that, okay, this was not acceptable. Then you try to fit it, and then you realize that, oh, these people don't know what they're talking about, and then you come back to yourself. So that
I
was
like
it.
how you quickly said, this is a you problem and not a me problem, because people are really quick to internalize things and be like, oh, what is it about me? And you were like, no, immediate rejection. That is not,
shut that down.
We ain't having that over here. Shut down immediately. So did you have like good community? I know you mentioned like, once you see someone who's Nigerian, you all are happy to see each other. Like, did you have like a good network in undergrad to, kind of get you through?
Yes, I did. So the crazy thing is that I also met some white people that were really great. Like the people who picked me up from the airport, I stayed with them for like a day before I got my hotel. They became almost like my mom and dad. They were this white couple. They're always doing it for students. And I had some other, then I had a Nigerian committee. I actually had an African committee. I had a really good friend, Kim. She worked in the International Student Services, so it was kind of great to have experiences of both meeting white people that were not racist and then meeting white people that were racist. And that's something I always like to tell most of my white friends is, you might feel like I'm just one person. I don't feel like I'm going to change one person's experience, but you can. Just my experience with these people allowed me to know that this is, like I said, a you problem. It's not a group problem. It's something that you can identify in individuals, and it's not. Yeah, you didn't inherit it. Maybe you did. I don't know.
You can work on it.
You can be
change
a better person
if you want. Yeah.
And so so I did have a really great community. I had so many friends. I actually started the African Student Union at the school over there. We had we had a Black Students Association, and then we had some Africans that were feeling like, oh, we wanted something that would like deal with some of the other so we kind of worked together and we created the African Students Union. I think it's still there too.
Nice. So you're like us. You like to create community when you don't see
it.
Yes. Would you call yourself an extrovert or an introvert?
I'm an ambivert.
Okay.
Oh, you're one of those.
You can turn it on when you need to. Turn it on.
And I know why, because, in Africa, there are different, every culture has an extroverted and introverted culture, depending on what they praise. In Nigeria, we are an extroverted culture. So when you're an introvert, they think something's wrong with you. What is wrong with you? Why are you sitting there by yourself? Did you kill somebody? Are you thinking to kill somebody? Because you want to be by yourself. And I was a reader. So I spent a lot of time in my books and in my book world. So I generally have been leaning towards introversion. But because I was in Nigeria and nobody allows you to do that.
You're not allowed to be an introvert.
So I would either be hiding under the chair to read or in a cupboard to read. And I'll take my book to parties because I have to be at a party and I have my book in there. Yeah. And they're like, why are you taking your book?
You're an introvert. You're an introvert. It's fine.
Party is not nice.
You're an introvert and an extrovert by force.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I became
introvert.
Yeah. But I do enjoy getting energy from people too. So sometimes I want to be in the midst of people and sometimes I just want to be by myself. So I think I've called myself an ambivert.
Okay. I can see that.
Yeah.
We're extroverts.
Yeah, we're definitely extroverts.
I want to be around a person all day long, every day. Like you could just be there. You could be reading your book.
Right. Just be there.
Just be there.
I have a weird theory about that. I always feel like it's a spectrum, right? Like we have extroverts on one side and introverts on the other side, and everybody is on that spectrum. And so people...
I'm an outlier. I'm beyond the range.
My mom and my sisters, they're like on that side. My eldest sister's on this side. I'm like somewhere in the closer to the side. And my brother,
I'm on the severe range. But then sometimes it'll walk back. Like as I've gotten older, it's kind of walks back a little bit. But
that's just because you're tired.
Yeah, that's because I'm tired. And even when there's hypothetical situations, I imagine myself and other people there doing something. Like it's never just an alone sort of thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Nope. I don't want to do it if I have to do it by myself. I don't.
That's why I like group exercise, dance classes, like all the stuff I need to do. It has to be people. I don't know why.
That's interesting.
I don't even have to know the people.
Just people.
Just humans. Human beings.
I know why you were with a Nigerian.
Funny enough, he's introverted.
I was just about to say that. Like,
but you're familiar.
Yeah. He's introverted, but he's kind of the same where it's like he's not allowed to be. Like they're like, oh, he's Americanized. He's quiet. He's this.
Speaking of introverted, a certain baby is being real extroverted in the background.
Can hear him. Oh my gosh, he's doing the most right now.
That's okay. He's cute.
But you're familiar for him.
Yeah, he talks to her.
Yeah,
and,
so she's
and the rest of us too.
She's giving the extroverted vibe.
He has to warm up,
which is comfortable with.
But he took the test and came out as an extrovert. And
that's a lie.
You are a liar.
That is a lie
from the pit. From the pit.
What test is that? And that's how we know that's pseudoscience. Okay,
they make you that way. I know because, like I said, like there's some cultures, like in Japan, where being extroverted is frowned upon. And then, and in Nigeria, Puerto Rico, being introverted is frowned upon. So, if you're taking a test, you're going to tend to lean towards what is not frowned upon.
Yeah. He was taught.
You're taught.
Anyway,
he took the test according to his cultural expectations.
Exactly. Yeah,
and not his actual personality.
Like, this is not who you really are.
He would tell you he's not introverted.
He is. He definitely is.
No, I think he would tell us he's introverted.
Oh, he does know?
I think he would say that.
He would say if he was. He's like, well, I'm not. But I feel like you said, it's a spectrum. So he might be closer to the introvert parts.
Exactly.
Girl. Okay, anyways. Enough about him.
him.
Because we aren't interviewing him. We're talking to Chioma. Okay. So, Chioma, you did an internship, right? Like while you were in school?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Because
that was like a first job,
that
right?
That was a first job for me. So this was in Dallas Emotive, and it was basically they built airplanes, and in that space, we were supposed to be updating the documents and information about the parts that they used to build airplanes, and that was really interesting for me being in that kind of environment. But it was one of those internship jobs where you're not really doing a lot of hands-on. You're just pretty much going back and forth. But I met some really cool people there. I'm always like, whenever I get a job, I'm always like thinking about how I can improve the process and things of that nature. It was kind of interesting to understand that most jobs are not really interested in you improving the process. Don't change things. So going with all of that enthusiasm, that was one of my first lessons to like, okay, which I took, growing up, that when you go somewhere, you want to stay first and learn the process completely before you start jumping in with ideas. And then if you're in a company where you realize they're not interested in improving process, you can decide exactly what you want to do going forward.
That's cool. I mean, you came back, and did you go to work after you finished your bachelor's degree, or did you go directly to the master's program?
I went directly to the master's program.
Okay. Why?
I was an international student. So I wanted to do a co-op for like a year of working, but I couldn't. And so I decided to start my master's right away to be in status.
Yeah, and you changed universities too.
Yes.
So what was it about? Like, what was the switch like, or what made you want to?
I was feeling a guy.
Real talk.
I met someone when I came to spring break in Florida, and
not MTV Spring Break.
Yes, ma'am. I was a cliche, and he was in Florida, and I was like, I'll just come over here and go to school so we can be closer together.
That's cute.
It's also a good school too.
It is a good school.
It's not like you went to University of Nowhere, following somebody.
True.
Nice. Nice.
And you switched to engineering management, or is that like a sub?
It was a sub. It was a sub. I was still in electrical engineering.
Okay.
But in addition to that, I added engineering management. As
like a minor?
Like a minor, yes. There was a program that we're doing then that was, if you take additional business classes with your electrical engineering, you can become an engineering manager along with it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I did like a sustainable engineering grad certificate while I was in school. So yeah, similar idea. And I'm sure like culture-wise things were a lot different from Texas to Florida, even though people like to conflate the two. We're different places.
I was just chasing the weather. I came from somewhere that was hot and I didn't really want to stay somewhere cold. And so it was either Texas or Florida. And, he made Florida a more prominent choice. I would have still been in Texas. But when I started at University of Texas at Dallas, it was a much smaller school.
Yeah, it's big now.
And then, and then I went over to USF, and it was a much bigger school. And in this environment, I was doing my master's, not undergraduate, so I was not as involved as I was when I was an undergrad at University of Texas.
Did you find it hard to find grad community during your master's, or did you have a similar community?
Well, it was a lot harder. I think because I had I had other things going on outside of school, and but I was part of Eta Kappa Nu. It's like it's
engineering fraternity,
for high GPA, whatever, something like that. But I was
said high GPA or whatever. She had a 4.0 by the by. She's like high GPA or whatever.
That was the story. That's what they told us. And then
who has a 4.0 in electrical engineering? Like what?
That part.
What?
So interesting enough, they would just call you and say, hey, because you have this GPA, do you want to join Eta Kappa Nu? And there's another one that was a competing one. But my friend was in Eta Kappa Nu, so I went with that one. And so, yeah. So
That's
it was kind of like I was part of that group because I had a friend from Haiti. And, we both just kind of followed the same thing. But it was not like when I was at UTD, where I was like on all the brochures and being part of the programs and all of that.
All the brochures.
So I was just like, yeah. Just like I was just going to school, my little corner. So it was a different experience for me.
So you finished. Did you do any research while you're there, or did you just do coursework?
I was focusing on small gate deposition, but I just ended up doing coursework because I got a job, and so I said moving away from the academics.
Okay, so you started working during the master's degree program.
Exactly.
Oh, that must have been tough. But you still ended it at 4.0?
Yeah, but that was
okay,
really
tough.
Know what? Right.
I don't know how to articulate to the folks who are listening how unrealistic that is.
Right.
Like to get a 4.0 in a regular degree program is like, wow, that's amazing. But electrical engineering, ma'am.
While working?
Yes.
And
there was some dude over there too. Being a distraction.
Right.
Child. Okay.
She taught herself how to read.
That was really tough.
I'm just saying.
That was tough. I'm not gonna lie. That was tough. That was really tough.
That's
tough
impressive.
Time. Yes. I switched to the locks, because you just didn't care about.
We gotta simplify some things.
Exactly.
We gotta simplify some life.
Get easier.
Okay, so at what point did you kind of find your groove working? Like, did you go to work for that company when you were done, or were you like, nah, this is not it?
I stayed with the company,
and
then that's when I got into engineering proper. At this point in time, And it was a Jabil Circuits. It was in St. Petersburg. It was a contract manufacturing industry, and we were building test systems for electronics devices that we were manufacturing.
Yeah, you stayed there a while, like for about 5 years.
Yeah, I overstayed.
Overstayed. How do you? Why? Why do you think it's an overstay?
It was my first experience in the work industry. I was underpaid. I had no idea I was underpaid. I was just trying to be an overachiever. And I think the person I had, my manager at the time, took advantage of me, understanding that I didn't really know how the system works, and really made it difficult for me. I actually developed a sickness working there.
Wow,
yeah, because it was very, very stressful. But eventually I ended up having to leave.
Mm-hmm. Did you? So I guess my question is, was the work something that you enjoyed? Like, is that part of why you stayed? Because you liked what you were doing?
Yes, I really enjoyed what I was doing. It was very interesting. It was a very fast-paced environment. Where I was coding and doing things in hardware, and we were building new products. So every time, it's almost like being in school. In school, you have the experience of new things, new technology coming down the pipeline. And then, I'm in this environment where I'm like, before it gets into the streets, we're already getting insights into some of it. So it was really, really exciting to be able to do all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us feel that way, especially students who stay in grad school. It's oftentimes pretty toxic.
Right.
But you stay because it's I love this thing.
It's a trauma bond.
It's a trauma bond. That's right.
I'm learning. Yes, exactly. And that it's hard to walk away from those types of things.
And I think my biggest problem was I didn't know I should walk away. Because as a Nigerian, we were raised with this whole, do or die, you don't quit kind of thing. And so you don't want to be given excuses.
Yeah.
You want to see how you can make change and fix things. It took me a while to realize that there's some people are just mean. They have nothing to do with you. Just mean people. And he was one of those type of people. And I think he was really upset when I was trying to leave. And it was just toxic from the top to the bottom. When I had the opportunity to leave, I forgot something. I just didn't bother to go back to get it.
You're like, I don't even need to walk in there.
I was afraid they were going to be like, yeah, and by the way, just stay.
Right. Did he try to or did they try to sabotage your next job? Or?
They tried. So... Well, I guess I could say. So I had a technician at the job that we used to work in the lab, and I would have things that work in the lab. I would leave my office and go work in the lab for some things. And one time he was listening to Rush Limbaugh. So this was early when Rush Limbaugh first came out as a show.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So there was a Haitian flood that happened. There was the earthquake. It was an earthquake, and I've been traumatized by what's going on TV. Traumatized by I have friends in Haiti. They're telling me stories, and I came in there, and on the radio, Rush Limbaugh was saying that God was punishing the people of Haiti.
Wow.
Stuff like that. That's why. And, you have been traumatized with little kids being pulled out, blood on their face and all that. Yeah. And you've asked God why, and things of that nature. So it was kind of hard to deal with it. So I asked him to please turn off the radio because it was making me uncomfortable. And he was kind of saying, "Oh well, this you stay in your office. This is my office. You shouldn't be you shouldn't be in, you shouldn't be here telling me what to do." And I got upset, and we kind of exchanged,
rightfully so,
exchanged words. And someone from HR came, and I was like, I didn't want anyone to get into trouble. I didn't want him to get into trouble. So I was like, oh, it's nothing. We'll fix it. We'll figure it out. Let's just. He's not a bad guy. He's just not really sharpest tool in the shed at that time. And he, I was like, I didn't want him to get into trouble because I know he's not intentionally being mean. He just doesn't know better. And my manager came by and he was like, he didn't like what happened. Or he thought I was going to report. He probably thought I was going to do something about it. And he started giving me a hard time. So at that time, I said I was going to leave. I was going to go somewhere else because at this point in time, just it was a compilation of stuff. But at this time, this was like that straw. And he kind of got a sense that I was looking for opportunities somewhere else. So I got a job interview scheduled, and I was trying to take the time off. But at the same time, I had not been able to take some time off, so I was losing time. So I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, I got to take the time off because I was losing time because I didn't want him to. It was for a job interview at the time." And he said, "No." I said, "Why?" And he was like, "Because you have things to do." So I did everything. I said, "Give me the list." So I did everything that he wanted. I was like, "Oh, it's not enough." He wasn't picky. He was just making it difficult. So I didn't show up. I just called in sick the next day because I needed time off, and I already feeling picked up. And he said, "Oh, he's gonna take me to HR." So that's kind of
oh my gosh.
Well, we all.
Well, you were sick. You were sick of him.
I was sick.
So.
I was really sick. I was not only sick of him. I was sick of the environment. I used to come to work and I would sit in my car, really thinking if I should go into work. And then I developed some sickness, and it was just my doctor. It was stress related, and my doctor was like, "You need to take some time. You need to take some time off." But at that point in time, when I was going there, it was a very mainly male dominated work environment. They didn't really know the people. They didn't care about mental health. There was a lot of angst towards women, and it was just completely difficult. And so he wasn't, it was him himself. I don't know, maybe it was a culture too, but he was not one of the nicest people to work for. I've had several managers before him, and he was just the worst one.
Wow. So he was making a hostile work environment.
He did make it a hostile work environment, but I was not enlightened enough at that time to take my power back or, stand up to him. It was when I got to the point where I just couldn't anymore. And I think it was the stress of the Haiti, the whole thing I just kind of like called it a day. And that's how we parted ways.
I think it's amazing that you recognize that, because a lot of people, like, I didn't recognize that I was in that scenario. Right. And so sometimes it takes an external person to point it out to you, like, hey, like what you're going through isn't normal.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so kudos to you for being able to recognize that, even if it was with like a physician's support, right? To get to that point where you were like, yeah, I'm out.
Right.
I don't have to be here. Yes. I could go.
Right.
Where I'm
here's
valued.
a choice.
Exactly. I think that's something a lot of people struggle with, not realizing that the job, you chose the company as much as the company chose you.
Yep.
It's kind of interesting because I had several good managers prior to him. So, it's you can't just say, oh, it's the company, right? You're like, if I avoid this guy, but I now I know better that if a company is allowing such behaviors to thrive, it's the company. Maybe the individuals that you dealt with themselves just chose not to participate in this kind of behavior.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, deep breath. What led you to create STEAMDivas? Because I feel like out of that kind of struggle and realizing you were isolated and alone, maybe that had something to do with it?
And you you hit the nail on the head completely. So I started Steam Divas because of that exact reason. Because part of the things I felt was maybe if I had other women, if I had more women, and I was having kids too. So there were some stories that happened when I was having big kids at that time when I was there. So I was like, maybe if I had, more women who would have supported me, it probably would not have been that bad. And so I said, well, what I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to create an opportunity for more women to be here. One of the things I noticed was a lot of times women's confidence is what gets attacked. Mm-hmm. I think what saved me was the fact that I grew up with my mom and I was in that kind of environment, and I grew up just knowing that I'm capable of all of those things, and my mom never stopped me, and everyone knew that this is how she is. So one of the things that they kept trying to tell me over and over again was that I was not intelligent, which was kind of funny because I was like, that's my only skill.
What?
That's a gift that I was born with, like
wait a minute, you got a 4.0?
Right. Okay. One thing about it, two things for sure. You ain't about to tell me.
But it was kind of interesting that, that was the narrative that was usually being tried to push towards me. And I found out that it's not just me. That is very common with a lot of women. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you see a woman, if she's not making an A, she thinks she's not intelligent enough. She's probably making a B. But if you see a guy is making a C, he thinks he's doing the best.
And of course.
So
he can teach the class.
Exactly. So that confidence, I wanted to steal the confidence the guys have and give it to the women. And so this is kind of like part of what we do with STEAM Divas. But women also girls tend to go towards where they have a lot of women. And I found that, most times it's places where it's non-STEMish. That's why we have more women in non-STEM environment. So I figured that if I can include those places as part of STEM, because I don't believe I believe everybody's technical and everybody's an artist. And I feel like if I can include it in, and that's where we came up with STEAM, that I'll be able to reach out to more girls who feel like maybe STEM is not for me. Because if I leave it open and say only girls who are interested in STEM, we'll only have the same small number of girls coming in. But if I make it possible that every form of woman can do STEAM her own way, even if she's doing singing or dancing or choreography or arts, and she can include STEM into it, then we can not only expand the creativity possibility of STEM, but we can also get more women within those environments. So that's kind of like why we're STEAM, not STEM.
That's so great. I knew it had to be connected.
Yeah, I love that.
It felt like it was connected.
Absolutely. And I love how you harp on the fact that people try to say like, oh, woman, you must be not confident. You must be unsure of yourself. It's like, no, actually, you might be the problem. So, and there's some, oh my goodness, there's some saying where it's like, basically, if you have a species and they're not thriving in an environment, you don't blame the species. It's the environment sometimes that is oftentimes not sustainable to life. Yes. Like you don't go to a rose that can't grow in the middle of concrete and say, what's wrong with you, rose? It's like, no, actually, you have put it in the wrong place. This is not habitable for life. So yeah, we need to think about STEM and all of these different environments in that way. Like, what are we doing in these environments to keep people out of it and stop blaming the people who are in there?
Right. I love what you just said, because this is the reason why I tell people I don't have imposter syndrome, because this is something they always try to push down women's throat that probably have imposter syndrome. Let's show you 10 ways to get over imposter syndrome. And I was like, I don't have one. I don't feel like I'm an imposter. I feel like I belong here. And, and I say, because if I feel like an imposter, that means I feel like I'm faking it. And I don't do fake. So I'm authentically here. So maybe my environment is not allowing me to try. Maybe my environment is the problem. And that's the thing. I think that I was blessed. And I know sometimes when I say, oh, I mean, this is what I'm good at learning. People are like, oh, is she showing up? No, it's just what it is. And everybody's good at learning, but just their own way. I don't feel like I don't think there's anybody in this world that is not intelligent. That's why I do what I do. I believe everybody's intelligent. I just have to figure out what your theme is and bring it to you the way you like it. And so whenever someone says, oh, like, why are you doing things this way? Like, that's pretty much like when you're trying to explain yourself as a woman, at work, we're very descriptive. We take time to get to the journey, to the direction. Sometimes we want to cut you off and act like you don't know what you're saying or you're arming too much or something. And so at one point in time, I used to give this terrible advice, like, to bring your voice. Maybe they'll listen to you more, to all the younger. And I'm like, speak how you like, so they can get comfortable to hearing a woman say those words or hearing a woman say things the way we say things. So that's kind of like what you're saying. Like, I feel like even the whole concept of imposter syndromes, or the concept of lean in, like, how far do I have to lean here, people? I'm already standing.
Right. I'm not about to lean off a cliff.
I know, that's right. Like, can we just at least deal with the problem, right, instead of trying to tell the victim, which I say imposter syndrome is victim blaming. So I'm telling the victim to, like, what are you wearing? Maybe you shouldn't have gone over to his place. It's still the same energy if we think about it, right? So yeah.
Definitely. And like, I'm listening to you, we're researchers. Kyla focuses on 3D audio, but I'm very much in the human side of things and looking at, like,
humans.
Yes, you use humans, but you don't really care about those humans' confidence
My IRB
levels.
says that we care about them. No.
You just care about them being able to hear when they're done.
That's true. That's all we care about. Yeah.
But like, I like on the engineering education side of things, like, there's so much that you've shared that aligns with things like that we study. It's like, how do we motivate people? How do we help them develop an identity around engineering? You have very high self-efficacy, and you've given a lot of examples of how you've engaged in learning and how that's built your competence, but also your confidence in what you do. You had a lot of affirmation from other people. You had all these different experiences where you were able to kind of feel like you belonged. Even though you had the negative ones, you focused on the positives, and that's like huge. And then you saw people, right? Like, you saw other people who looked like you, whether or not they were doing the right things. Although it sounds like you might have been the one kind of pushing the envelope of some of that space.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So like on the psychology side of things, like, you're definitely the right person to be in this space. So it's really, how do we motivate the people who don't have all of that?
Yes.
But we know, like, they're capable.
Right.
And like you said, they are intelligent. Maybe their intelligence looks different than what people might say conventionally would be an engineer. But what does that even mean? And who gets to define that?
Yes. Let me blow your mind a little bit about that. So, I grew up in Africa, Nigeria, and I had times to go to the countryside. And I've always had the opportunity to sit with the elders and the elders, and everything that they teach usually is passed by tribal knowledge. Stories. And so when I do engineering or I design engineering, I design with that. I'm very conservative in the way that I don't waste things. I can design conservatively, and I'm always thinking big picture, because that's the way the African system is. We have always had a closed economical systems post-colonialism. And when we invited something that's non-closed, that's when we broke. The reason I say that is that whenever we plant a tree, we use everything on the tree. Nothing goes to waste. So when you look at the mud houses and you look at the roof thatch roofs, you realize that everything is supposed to disintegrate back into earth without damaging it. So when you build the mud house, you see that it sweats. That's what we call it during the winter when it gets cold, and then it gets dry during the summer, and that sweat, makes heat inside. And there was a pot that we used to drink water from that was made out of clay, and the water is so cold you think it was in the fridge. So it's kind of interesting. We always put like in a dark place. It has a taste, but it was kind of interesting that all of these things was just how they were using technology without necessarily doing it the way that we did it over here. And so if the leaves of the tree is fed to the goat's poop is used to feed the tree. So everything is supposed to be closed. We never waste anything. We think about how do we close the system whenever you're building anything, which is what is destroying technology now. So one of the things that I always like to talk about, I like to talk about us building systems. It doesn't have to be, because most times I find that most times people are trying to rebuild the systems that we currently have. I think it's badly built. I think we have to break it down and just build from scratch and build these closed systems that I'm talking about. I always say autopoietic systems, like a system that is existing within the system, but it's closed, so nobody can, whatever is going on the external side should not really bother it. But that's the way I say it. Like, so when you've received intelligence from those people and you kind of like understand certain things, like in Nigeria, because we speak so many languages, we have to listen to each other outside of the words that is spoken. So you, from a young age, you've already learned how to read people. So you have almost like this intuition. So you have really high EQ, which some people use it to, manipulate. But at the same time, it's still a superpower. And you start seeing that there's another level of hearing that is not really attached to what people say. So you don't even have to fully explain things. So sometimes if you're talking to Nigeria, they don't really fully explain. I tell people that when you speak Pidgin English, you can say something with the same word. Like I say, and I will know exactly what the person is saying. Seriously. And it's crazy. That's why it's so hard to teach Pidgin English. But then it's because we have learned the languages outside of what is being spoken. And every one of us had to be multilingual because there were so many different dialects and different languages. So when you come up in those environments and you're able to take all of that and then infuse it with living in America, and you're not coming in with the sense that there's some kind of superiority or less than within each side, you're able to just infuse it together. Then you create another level of things, which is why I keep saying that nobody is unintelligent. If you understand how they understand things, they can figure out, they can be more creative than you within your area of expertise because they can see things that you cannot see.
So what are some like anecdotes from STEAMDivas that like you could share? Like what are they doing? How do they engage with STEM and the arts?
Well, last year we had an opportunity to teach them how to design hair using robotics parts. So they were building spinning hair. So using the Arduino, they were able to program and style the hair, and they were making the hair to move and then we had some LEDs on it so they could get some lights to come on and all that. But they styled hair differently. So we're able to capture their imagination around styling hair, and then we just give them the parts. And the kids, they always amaze me with what they can do. So every time I'm trying to build something, I'm always trying to, how can I infuse art into it? Like, how can I infuse so they can be creative in the areas where they're strong? And then because they have interest in improving what they're strong at, they learn this then without much ado. So they don't get caught up with, how we can get drawn on and on about, the velocity of,
they don't need to be all in the details.
And they just need to know what they need to know, and they can dig further if they have interest. And this year, we're going to get them to learn how to understand the periodic table and how it affects their faces. So we're going to have them to create like a lip balm, and they will give them some ingredients to do a bath bomb and things like that.
I want a bath bomb.
and face masks. And we're going to show them all the contents and the ingredients that's usually in the makeup, and show them how to read it and how to compare it to the things that they see on the periodic table so they can understand the periodic table. So that's our way of getting them to be interested in the periodic table, get them to be interested in chemistry because they like makeup. It's true.
Are you all funded by any like national organizations or anything? Or is this out of the goodness of your heart? And
it's out of the goodness of the heart and supporters.
There's informal STEM learning grants where this is definitely, you are in the wheelhouse to get fun. So let's talk about that offline.
Oh, yes,
but
please.
Everything that you've talked about, I'm just like, I've had conversations with folks about this, like literally how to use things like makeup and like, I think we had something called like chemistry of cosmetics that we did with some girls where same sort of thing. We're doing lip balm and bath bombs to like,
we
show
got to
them the
connect
chemistry
you with some people we know. That's
we
all
know
I got.
some people, we know some avenues. And you're in Tampa, so it's like, you're right here. So.
Well, you're not in Tampa.
I'm in
Where are you in Florida?
I'm in
She's
Melbourne.
on the other side now.
Yes.
I gotta come see you. I have a good friend in Melbourne.
We're gonna come visit and meet the girls and hang out and bring some swag.
I love that.
Yeah,
we would love that.
I would definitely. Yes, I'm always open. But there's one thing, like I know there are grants and I know there are opportunities, but I'm always like, one of the things I'm trying to do, this is something my cousin and I were doing. We're learning how to ungrind because Black women, we do too much. So I'm really managing my time and effort because once you start getting money from people,
you have some expectations of your time.
I have a job that I'm doing too. I have kids. I have 2 teenagers, by the way. Wow. So I'm always like, prioritizing me first, my kids, and then, everything else. And so STEAMDivas is a mission. I don't believe it's something, I don't believe, I'm not held back by time. I don't believe I have to do everything right now.
Well, we're excited to learn more about your nonprofit and how it aligns with what we're doing. Yes. This is part of our mission is to reach young girls and women in computing. And so we often go and do visits with different programs, whether it's virtual or in person. In your case, you're really close. So we could easily just drive a couple hours down the road and hang out and maybe go to the beach.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm really excited about that. I love the beach. So you're my person.
Yes, we got to make that happen. But with Modern Figures Day at the beach.
Yes,
I love it. We need to buy the swimsuits.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
There's swimsuits on the website, y'all.
At first, and now they have
I was a little hater for a bit, and it's a lot. But we could definitely have. Nah, we don't need a beach photo shoot. We just need to be there.
We can be there. Look at a picture of the water. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah,
that's my phone.
Well. Is there anything else like that you wanted to share with the listeners about?
We can talk about your book.
Oh, the book. Yeah.
Yes. So I wrote a book. It's called Unlocking the Team Puzzle. It's focused around productivity personalities. What does that really mean? Because I coined that term. It means that everybody has a personality when they are being productive in work. The thing is that people think everybody has the same burnout. But the reality is, if you're doing something that's not tied to your productivity personality, you're going to burn out. So there are 3 productivity personality. At least I group them into 3. Call them the early starters, the people I like to call the deep divers, and the final finishers. So the early starters are the people who are always quick on their projects. As I'm describing, you're going to know who I'm talking about in your life. They're always quick to drive on the project. Whenever you start talking about something, they're like, yes, I got it. They're always coming up with new ideas. They're always like coming up with things. Yep. I told you. And the deep divers are usually the ones that are like, okay, we got the idea. Let's deep dive into it. They're usually very focused on one area of specialty. They deep dive and add flesh to that framework that the early divers are. And then the final finishers are those people that like to wrap things up. They usually crossing into where the user's experience are. They have historical data of the last time that they've done that product. So all of those 3 people build any industry, and we need all 3 of them at each point of the project. We should have one dominating over the other. Now, this book actually is telling you more about each of those personalities, how they work well within each other, how they work well within companies, because companies sometimes have those personalities dominating, and you can see with the way they release their products. You can guess which company is which, and how companies can use the idea and hire right and move their people forward, knowing that you're not burning them out.
Yeah. And is this like mutually exclusive? Like you're one type or another? Or can you be like 50% type 1, 25% type 2?
Like, no human is ever mutually exclusive. It's always one area that you're predominantly, of course. So I am an early starter. I call myself out. And I'm a final finisher, but I'm mostly early starter. And the reason why I'm a final finisher was because I worked somewhere that I had to make sure I was recording everything. So sometimes your productivity personality, you can pick it out of the job type that you've done, or in certain kind of jobs, you can pick up some habits, but that does not mean that's your core. So yes, I am a final finisher. Sometimes I can do final finisher work, but deep diving, oh God, it's like you're killing me.
I don't know anybody who's like, well, I do. Never mind. Let me stop.
It's like the people who, like, you say an idea and they're kind of on board, but they're like, well, let me look this up. Let me go see. Let me go. And it's like, no, can't you see it all goes together like this? Stop looking up stuff.
They're like, before we start, let's just make sure that this will match with this. And you're like, let's just put the wires together for now.
For me,
I like to get the bow put on a thing.
You say put the bow on the thing?
I want the bow. I want it packaged and I want it out.
She's a final finisher.
That is me.
Yep. For me, I'm just like, if I see how it goes together in my head, you will eventually catch up. But we're gonna
just keep it moving.
Right.
And knowing that, this is why the book is good. You know who your second in command is going to be. My second in command, because I can do the early starter, and I can have a little bit. My second in command always has to be a deep diver, because they have a place. They pull me back, because I would just keep running, and they're calling me back like, hey, let's deep dive into this stuff before you run out there. So it's always great to know these things. And even as a manager, it's very, very helpful for me to know what burns out my team and get them to be who they need to be. So it was a book that just came out of managing of people a lot and just trying to understand them and understanding companies too, because sometimes I'm trying to give somebody a raise or promotion, and I'm trying to explain to them that this person is beneficial. They're not an early starter, because they're usually, the first front. They're the people who actually tie things up for you. And it's hard to make that pitch. And I realized that all of these things affect even the way the company's product is being done.
Yeah. That's cool. I'm glad that you found something that, aligns with how you manage people. I mean, it uses your skills that you developed over the years, because you've been doing this for a while.
Yes.
Right? The teenagers are the example of how long you've been
right.
Yes.
Because they showed up in the beginning, and then they're still here.
Yes, right. Yep. And you have to understand what drives them. But it's a good book. I just thought that it's very, it's something I felt like was very helpful for me to make my team to be really successful. And I wanted to share that. I didn't want to overwhelm people. I have 2 more books to put out behind this, but I have things going on. But this is just like an introduction into productivity personality mainly. I wanted people to be able to at least start understanding that because most times some managers tend to judge their team members because of their own personality type. He's like, oh, he's not like me, so he can't be good. But in reality, we can have all of me on my team. So you start having someone that's a deep diver telling you to slow down. You'd be like, he's not a team player. He's not a pusher. And so I thought this would help a lot of managers and a lot of people to also know that they're not terrible, because they're not like the rest of the team, that they have their strengths there, and then know their weaknesses and mitigate it. And so that's some of the benefits of this book that I put out there.
Even just this discussion helped me to understand one of my PhD students just now. I was like, this is what I need to help them do this other. I'm not trying to put them out there.
Yeah,
I'm like, this is what this person is. Definitely.
You need to get the copy. You need to get the book. It's on Amazon,
yes.
right? It's a Kindle version, and then you can get a hard copy. I have one
we'll put a link
right
to
here.
it in the show notes
yes,
too for
people. And it's very, very helpful. Very quick read. At least it just gives you an idea. We start seeing the pros and the cons, and you're like, oh, and you learn how to mitigate them together too. It's in the book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yes.
Okay. Now, since we're wrapping up, is there anything else that you want people to know?
Yes. STEAM Divas, we are having our IWD event, which I just talked about with the chemistry, and it's happening. We called it STEAM Divas Glow Up. And so definitely go to our website, STEAMDivas.org. It's going to be in the show notes. I'm going to add that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's there.
and definitely you can sign up a STEAM Diva because we do have virtual events. So for students who cannot show up in Florida, we have events that we participate in that also includes art. The last time we did a machine learning virtual event. But also you can sign up as a volunteer. If you don't have a STEAM Diva, you want to sign up, you can sign up as a volunteer or a mentor, because part of what we give to young girls is introduce them to other women or men or people who are in the work industry to help build their confidence. I don't want you to feel like you have to be a STEM or tech person. Basically what we give to them is confidence as a mentor. Mm-hmm. Of course, volunteers, you don't have to be a tech person. We train you a day before the event. So definitely it's not that difficult. We also know that a lot of parents, because STEAM Divas is mostly for young girls from 9 to 18 years. But we know some parents have males, boys in their family. I have a boy and a girl. So sign up as a parent. We have tips and tools and things we provide to you, which you can use for your child, your son. At the end of the day, we are very open to everyone going. We just wanted an environment where the girls can feel safe and at least just focus on what they're doing rather than getting distracted with other things. So definitely we are not gatekeeping this. Everything we're teaching, the curriculums are all available to parents if you want to do the same thing with your son.
And IWD is International Women's Day for people who are listening and don't know. And typically that's celebrated in March. But some people do their events in March and April because why we only get a day. So anyways, that's for everybody who's listening and wondering what that meant.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Definitely
look up our website, STEAMDivas.org. We have lots going on there. We have things happening. We love our volunteers. We love our mentors and our parents too. We have a Slack channel. We have a Discord channel, so you can network with other parents too and other students. Mm-hmm. And if about my book, I have a different website, an authors page. That one is Chioma Aso .com. That's pretty much my first name and my last name. And you can find that also in the show notes.
Oh yeah, we have that in there.
Where you can grab a copy of my book.
Wonderful. Yes. Well, thank you so much for reaching out and wanting to be a part of our podcast. And we will definitely be following up to come bother you down in Melbourne.
I love that. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate being on here and allowing me to be honest and be myself.
Yeah, absolutely.